Alrighty guys, so if there's one thing that I rarely do on this channel is give tower defense developers the benefit of the doubt. But today, that changes. With the TDX Nightmare launch, we saw a lot of good with this update. A fantastic, very difficult mode with arguably some of the coolest and arguably the #1 coolest boss we have ever seen in any tower defense game, the Emperor. I mean, come on, I have played hundreds of hours of various tower defense games on Roblox, and nothing has ever come close to the Emperor. But with the release of Nightmare Mode, there was one controversy that was pretty consistent throughout the TDX community, and that was the Nightmare rewards. Now, see, when Nightmare launched, they added a new currency, which is the crystals, and you use that to buy all of the Nightmare exclusive towers like Refractor and War Machine. However, whenever the mode launched, we got 2 times crystals, so the rewards were doubled. And upon completing a match of Nightmare Mode on a easy map, which is the base rate, you would receive 950 crystals as the doubled rate. Meanwhile, Nightmare Towers, especially ones like Refractor, were 14,500 crystals. And so it was very common throughout the TDX community to say this was not a satisfactory rate. And I agree. 950 as a doubled reward was just not enough. 450 as a base crystal reward for beating an hour-long game mode was just not satisfactory and would have taken way too much grinding. That being said, John today has come out and said that they are in fact almost doubling the base rewards. The base rewards are now 925 instead of 450, meaning the Nightmare rate is basically just staying doubled forever. And I do really agree with this. I know a lot of people still do not like the second currency, but I'm gonna get into why I do like the second currency. See, with the amount of ways to get gold in TDX, especially with things like Endless where you can stockpile insane amounts of gold super fast, TDX has a problem where grinding players who just no-life the game have millions upon millions of gold. And so every time a tower is released, no matter how expensive, those players will just instantly buy the tower, play with it, and that'll be that. Meanwhile, the developers keep adding expensive towers like Gold Juggernaut and Gold Mobster that players have to grind for, and so players who do not play the game nearly as often are constantly getting bogged down with things like Combat Drone and Gold Mobster that are just almost impossible to grind for if you don't just know life TDX. And so, when designing Nightmare Mode, the TDX developers took a page out of the Tower Defense Simulator playbook, and whenever they released their version of Hardcore Nightmare, they added a second currency, crystals. Kind of like the gems from Tower Defense Simulator. And so what a second currency fundamentally does is it allows for the developers to make sure all players are on a relatively similar grind length for these new towers. And this is inherently done to start a form of it is a player retention strategy. Because, you know, if say you can just buy the tower right after it comes out, why even play the new mode past like 1 or 2 games? And so having players have to replay this mode a bunch of times, it is inherently something that the developers do to create player retention to keep people playing the game. And I actually do support this. If the grind is reasonable, which now that they have buffed crystal rewards, I do think the grind is okay. I am okay with the grind. I do not think it is super overbearing. It makes me happy seeing this many people playing TDX because obviously it is a game that, you know, you and I probably really love. And so having this many people on the game is really nice. Because, you know, more people are joining, newer players are joining, it's, you know, getting a lot of new thoughts into the TDX atmosphere, and overall, the concept of retaining players is something that TDX in the past has struggled with. As TDX would release an update, the player count would double for about a week, and then it would go back to being normal. And so what I'm hoping is that this gem grind is going to create a longer player retention between updates, especially with things like Halloween on the horizon, Ultra Mode, and even Christmas and Tower Battles Part 2. I believe TDX is going to be able to keep retaining players better. And so while yes, the grind for these Nightmare Towers and the existence of crystals does kind of suck if you are not a big fan of grinding, which I mean, let's be honest, who is? I do think long-term, this is a decision that the developers made for the long-term health of the game. It's not exactly the most fun thing in the world, but overall, I think that the benefits that TDX will receive from having the second currency far outweigh the cons of it. Something also I will give the TDX developers credit for is they did also add a currency conversion, which is something that no other tower defense game that I know of personally with a second currency has. And this, while, you know, it's not groundbreaking amounts of crystals, it's something that you can use to passively grind for crystals with additions for other crystal grinding methods like Expert Mode and Frosty's Invasion. But that's what I think about crystals. I'm well aware this is kind of a hot take, But overall, I'm just really glad to see this many people playing TDX again, and I'm really hoping that these new updates that they're cooking up are going to be just as good as Nightmare, because, I mean, oh my gosh, y'all saw that Emperor boss fight. That'll be a future video, don't you worry. Anyways, like the video if you like the video, subscribe for more salts, join that Discord server, which there's the link in the description if you are extra cool, but most importantly, and forever and always, make stuff you're proud of.